Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload. I used to think a quiet morning was proof that life still liked me. Coffee steaming beside a tidy sink, a shirt pressed the night before, a wave to Mr. Patel across the street as he coaxed his garden hose into a perfect circle. Routine had a way of convincing me that nothing dramatic could squeeze through the cracks. Then a message arrived that sliced my day in half. It chimed while I wrestled with a stubborn spreadsheet. An unknown number, one smug sentence. Nothing else. I'm going to confront your husband and end your marriage today. It was addressed to my wife, but I was copied. Like an invitation to watch a fire he'd just lit. No greeting, no preamble. Just the confidence of a person who believes scenes belong to him. I stared at that line until my monitor dimmed. My name never appeared, yet I felt targeted all the same. The phrasing carried a certain shine, a practiced swagger, the tone of someone who thinks honesty means spectacle. My first instinct wasn't fear, it was humiliation. Whoever he was wanted me present when he flipped a table. He wanted a moment I'd never forget. On the corner of my desk sat a photo from last spring. Me and Nora at the lake, faces warm, eyes careless. We looked like people who trusted ordinary days. Lately, our rhythm had shifted by degrees. A phone face down more often. Laughter arriving late to the room. A new perfume that came with a sample set, even though the bottle looked anything but free. None of it amounted to a verdict. Together, though, they hummed. The text turned that hum into a siren. I called Nora. Straight to voicemail. I called again. The same hard click. I sent a message. We need to talk. Are you safe? No reply. I tried to carry on, sent 2 emails, pretended coffee still fixed everything. The second hand on the wall clock became a drummer in my head. A thought slipped past my defenses. If a man is bold enough to send that sentence, maybe he's bold enough to come to the house. Maybe he wants to make sure I'm home for the performance. My phone rang. Mr. Patel never calls. He waves, offers mangoes, comments on football scores, but he doesn't dial my number. His voice trembled. There's chaos at your place, he said, searching for simpler words and failing. Police, an ambulance, you should come, right now. The drive back is a blur of red lights and bargaining. I promised the steering wheel I'd keep breathing if the world would slow down long enough for me to get there. When I turned onto our street, it looked like a story I didn't recognize. One patrol car at the curb, another angled across the lane, an ambulance parked like a diagonal exclamation point. Neighbors had formed an anxious half-circle on the sidewalk, a chorus hungry for answers they didn't want. Our front door wore a fresh wound, the latch leaned away from the frame. Pale splinters dusted the porch like frost. An officer lifted a hand to stop me. Sir, we need... That's my home, I said, every syllable heavier than usual. My wife... Name, I gave it. He checked a device clipped to his vest, then gestured me forward. Stay behind me. Inside, familiar things had been rearranged by a careless hand. The bowl for our keys lay on its side, contents scattered like small coins across the rug. The framed print of a Lisbon street hung crooked, its bottom corner free. The track on the hallway runner showed scuffs I didn't recognize, arcs of gray like weather patterns. The house felt like a stranger wearing my clothes. Clear, someone called from the living room. A second voice answered with steady instructions. The ambulance crew waited just inside, calm and watchful. No one looked panicked. The absence of panic steadied me more than anything else. That's when I saw him. He stood near the sliding door, posture too proud for the situation. A navy shirt, sleeves tight over gym-built forearms. Beard trimmed with the kind of attention people give to things they admire. His right hand wore a fresh bandage. He turned and his eyes scanned me as if I were an item on a checklist. I didn't know him, yet he seemed eerily familiar. The face I had feared into existence without meaning to. That's him, the officer murmured beside me. Claims the door was open. The man spoke before anyone invited him. I came to talk, he announced, like a courtesy he needed recorded. I care about her. You needed to know. About who? I asked, even though my stomach already knew the answer. Nora, he said, savoring the name as though it was his to enjoy. Your wife. Silence spread like spilled water. The officer requested identification, took down the name, Marco, and guided him into a chair. Marco repeated his version 3 times, as if repetition could make it true. The door was ajar, he called out. He was worried. Safety, he kept saying, stretching the word to cover everything it didn't fit. I glanced around, trying to anchor my mind with facts. The wooden bar we kept in the sliding door track lay on the floor like a fallen guard. A lamp tilted near the couch. One of Nora's green flats wasn't by the mat. Every piece of disarray felt deliberate, not chaotic. My chest tightened, then settled into a measured beat. I could react, or I could record. The officer drew me aside. Do you know this man? No. Do you think your wife does? I don't know, I said, hating the softness in that truth. Did you receive any messages today? I showed him the text. He photographed my screen, typed notes with patient economy, then studied the doorframe. You didn't leave that bar out this morning? No. We'll need statements from both of you, he said. Where is she? I've been trying to reach her. He dispatched a partner to canvass the street. Another officer checked windows, asked about valuables, logged the lack of obvious theft. The ambulance crew lingered near the porch, eyes alert but relaxed, ready for just in case. It occurred to me that nothing catastrophic had happened inside. Yet a new kind of damage had settled in the air, the sort that erodes trust more effectively than any crowbar. Marco tried to catch my eye. I'm not your enemy, he said softly, persuasion slick in his tone. She needed honesty. I gave it. Breaking into our home isn't honesty, I replied, surprised by my own steadiness. It's trespassing. I didn't break. The officer cut him off. I'd suggest you stop talking until we finish our questions. We had cameras we rarely checked, installed after a neighbor's bike disappeared. I opened the app with shaking fingers. There he was at 10:43 a.m., checking the street, leaning into the lock, forcing the slide. I held the clip out. The officer nodded. Please send that to this address, he said, handing me a card. We'll add it to the report. Through the open door drifted Lila from 2 houses down, casserole dish under foil like a shield. I saw him near your side gate, she told the officer. Around 10:30. Thought he was a delivery guy cutting through. He hopped the fence. There was a silver sedan a couple houses down. Couldn't see the plate. The officer thanked her. Marco shifted in his chair as if the cushions had sharpened. He muttered, She told me I could, then clamped his mouth shut. She told you what? The officer asked. Nothing, he said at first, then surrendered a sliver. We were talking. She said she couldn't keep this. She was going to end it. With him. He angled his chin toward me. I came to support her. The word support cracked like thin ice. The officer remained composed. Do you have that conversation in writing? Marco's jaw tightened. No. Did she invite you into the house? She didn't say not to. Not the same thing, the officer said, and the door clearly wasn't open. My vision tunneled to small things. A pair rolling near the baseboard, the Lisbon print barely hanging on, the photo magnet knocked to the floor. When I flipped the picture, it showed us laughing at a street festival, heads tipped together, paper cups raised. I returned it to the fridge, hands shaking only after I let go. The officer took my full account. Times, habits, that bar in the track, even the way Mr. Patel described chaos as if the word hurt. He stayed level, neither pitying nor cold, a tone that made space for facts to line up. Before he finished, my phone buzzed again. A voicemail from an unknown number. I pressed play. The same voice from the morning, proud and tinny through the speaker. You can't stop truth, you can only delay it. Then a click as theatrical as a curtain drop. They walked Marco to the porch for more questions. He argued in circles, confidence losing steam under the quiet persistence of people who do this every day. A cruiser took him away without a performance. No cuffs, no raised voices, just firm insistence, and a door closing with a soft thud that sounded final enough to breathe again. Do you want to stay elsewhere tonight? The lead officer asked me. At least until you replace the lock. I looked around my home. The couch we picked after 30 arguments. The rug we tolerated because it shed less now. The hallway paint we never finished because we couldn't agree on the second coat. Leaving felt like abandoning a friend after a bad day. "I'll change the hardware this afternoon," I said. "I'll stay." He handed me a case number and his card. "We'll reach your wife," he said. "We need her statement. Based on what we've heard, it appears she knows him. That's not a conclusion, it's a lead. We'll follow the facts." When the last uniform left and the ambulance rolled away, the street exhaled. Neighbors slipped back indoors. Mr. Patel gave me a small salute and disappeared behind his hedge. I swept splinters into a dustpan, bagged the larger pieces for evidence, and taped a temporary latch like a child building a fort. The refrigerator hummed, the house felt bruised and watchful. I made tea I didn't want and opened the notebook we keep for grocery lists and vacation fantasies. I wrote the date, the time stamps from the camera, the exact wording of that message. I wrote how the wooden bar lay on the floor, how the print hung crooked, how Lila described the silver sedan. My handwriting steadied as the page filled. Documentation wasn't revenge, but it was a start. Protection against people who twist memory into a shape that suits them. I tried Nora again, straight to voicemail. I typed a final text. "Police came. You need to call me. We're safe. We have to talk." I set the phone face up on the table for once, ready to let whatever came next arrive without hiding from it. Evening drifted in, the kind that makes every window a mirror. I replaced the deadbolt using a kit I'd ordered months ago and never used. Each screw turned like a promise. I was tightening the last one when the lock clicked from the other side. A gentle nudge met my temporary chair brace. Her voice came through the gap, soft, careful. My name, the way it sounds when you want to be forgiven for something or saved from something else. I moved the chair, opened the door. Nora stood on the porch with wind-tangled hair, eyes wider than usual, phone clutched to her chest like a fragile thing. Beyond her shoulder, the block had returned to its usual quiet. Our house, however, had not. "I got a call from a neighbor," she said, stepping in, stopping just inside as she took in the skewed frame, the taped latch, the dustpan waiting by the baseboard. What on earth happened? "There was a man," I answered, keeping my voice even. "He said he knows you." Her lips parted, then pressed together. No denial, no confession, only a flicker. Fear, not posture. She looked toward the sliding door, saw the fallen wooden bar, and swallowed. "Who?" "He said his name was Marco." The name landed like a stone dropped in still water. No splash, just a quick sinking that changed everything underneath. She closed her eyes for a heartbeat, then opened them. "I can explain," she said softly. "But please, keep your phone close. We might not be safe while I do." I set the screwdriver down. The tea on the counter had gone cold, the light outside thinned to silver. I pulled out a chair for her and sat across from the person I loved and didn't entirely recognize, the person who might be in trouble or might be the trouble. Either way, the next pages would be written in our voices, not his. "Start at the beginning," I said. "All of it." She didn't speak right away. Her eyes darted to the splintered doorframe, the taped latch, the notebook lying open on the table with my cramped handwriting crawling across the page. The weight of the day pressed between us like another person listening in. Finally, she inhaled slowly, like she was counting seconds before jumping into deep water. "I never wanted any of this," she said, voice trembling, but clear. "You have to believe that first." I didn't interrupt. My fingers curled around the edge of the table. Her story began where all the small cracks in our marriage had once lived quietly. Late nights at work, missed dinners, conversations that had turned into monologues. She said Marco had been a consultant for her office, a short-term hire to help with a project that needed fresh ideas. He was clever, funny in that deliberate way some people practice, always knowing the perfect thing to say to whoever was listening. At first, she'd admired him from a distance, convinced herself it was harmless. They were both professionals. Nothing else. But admiration is a quiet thief. One moment it stands politely at the door. The next it's sitting on your couch, feet up pretending to belong. She said he started texting her small things, harmless jokes, ideas for work, photos of sunsets captioned. This reminded me of our conversation. It was slow, calculated. He listened when she talked about stress, nodded when she mentioned how distant I'd seemed, offered sympathy where I'd only offered advice. "I didn't mean to let it go so far," she whispered. I told myself he was just a friend who understood. But understanding can become its own kind of addiction. Messages turned into calls. Calls turned into late meetings. The first time he kissed her, she told him no. The second time, she didn't. The memory of it lived in her voice now, shame and fear woven together. When she realized what she'd done, she tried to end it. Marco refused. He said she didn't know what she wanted. He said I didn't deserve her. She said he scared her a little, not because he shouted, but because he never did. His calm was worse than rage. It was certainty. The morning he sent that message, she had already told him she couldn't see him again. He laughed and said he'd handle it. "That's what he meant," she said, eyes wet but focused. "When he said he'd confront you. He thought if he made you see what he thought was true, we'd fall apart, and I'd have no one but him. He thought chaos would make me choose him." I felt something break quietly inside me, not anger, something slower. A realization that we'd both been living in versions of each other's absence. "Did you know he might come here?" I asked. "No," she said immediately. "He sent me messages all morning. I didn't answer. Then he started threatening to show up. I turned off my phone and went to the office. I thought if I ignored him, he'd stop. I never imagined he'd actually—" Her voice cracked before she finished. I took a deep breath, trying to build some structure out of everything unraveling in front of me. "The police think you know him," I said. "They'll need your statement." "I'll tell them everything," she said, rubbing her temples. "But there's more." That sentence made me sit back. "More?" She nodded, tears streaking down the sides of her face now. "A few weeks ago, I started noticing things. Someone following me from work, anonymous calls. I thought it was coincidence or paranoia. But Marco once mentioned details about where I'd been when I hadn't told him. He said a friend had seen me. I think he's been watching me longer than I realized." The air in the room thickened. "So this wasn't just about us," I said slowly. "He's been tracking you?" "I think so," she whispered. "He's obsessed, not in love. He wants control. When I told him I was going to fix things with you, he said he'd make sure that never happened." I rubbed my forehead, the day's puzzle shifting into a darker shape. It wasn't about cheating anymore. It was about obsession, about a man who couldn't accept rejection. I stood, pacing to the window. Outside, the street looked ordinary again. Neighbors' lights glowing, someone walking a dog, the smell of rain threatening in the air. It felt wrong that the world could look so calm when everything inside us was wreckage. "You should file for a restraining order," I said finally. "We'll give the police every message, every call." She nodded, whispering, "I've saved them all." She unlocked her phone and showed me the messages, dozens of them, some pleading, some taunting, some written like confessions from a bad movie. Then one from the morning. "I'll make him see who you really are." That line matched the tone of the text that had reached me. When the police returned an hour later to collect a full statement, Nora told them everything. Her affair, the threats, the unwanted visits. The officer listened, professional but gentler this time. He said Marco was in custody, facing charges for breaking and entering, trespassing, and harassment. They'd found the silver sedan Lila described parked a few blocks away, engine cold. Inside it, a small notebook filled with Nora's name, our address, even photos of our home taken from the street. Hearing that sent a chill down my spine that no hot tea could fix. The officer promised to arrange extra patrols near our neighborhood for the week. "You both need to keep your phones on," he said. "He's dangerous, but he's not invisible. We'll keep watch." When the door shut behind them, the silence that followed was heavier than before. Nora sat curled on the couch, arms wrapped around herself. I wanted to comfort her, but I didn't know how to bridge the space between betrayal and protection. Part of me still loved her deeply. Another part couldn't forget the look on Marco's face when he said her name. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked softly. "I was afraid," she said. "Not of you, of losing everything at once. I thought I could fix it before you ever knew. I thought if I ended it quietly, it would disappear. But secrets grow teeth." She looked up, her eyes pleading. "I never stopped loving you. I was lost, and he made me feel seen when I was invisible to myself. That's not your fault, it's mine. I wanted to be angry, I wanted to shout, but exhaustion overruled fury. The truth had already done its damage. What mattered now was safety. We'll deal with this together, I said. The words surprised me as they left my mouth, but they felt right. Not forgiveness yet, just a decision to face the next step side by side. That night, neither of us slept. Every creak in the house sounded like a footstep. Every car passing by felt like a threat rolling on tires. I stayed awake in the living room, the new lock gleaming faintly under the porch light. A quiet guardian. Around 3 a.m., Nora came out, wrapped in a blanket, and sat beside me. We didn't speak. We just listened to the hum of the fridge and the faint whisper of wind pressing against the window. In that silence, I realized something unexpected. Revenge wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was survival. Sometimes it was making sure the person who tried to control your life lost the script he'd written. And maybe that would be enough, for now. The next morning, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. My heart raced, but I answered anyway. A police officer's voice came through. "Sir, we need you and your wife to come down to the station. We've found something you'll want to see." Nora's eyes widened as I relayed the message. Neither of us spoke on the drive there. The air smelled like rain and something metallic, a scent that clung to the edges of memory. When we arrived, the officer met us at the entrance with a grim expression. He had more plans, he said quietly. We found recordings, audio files on his phone. He'd been documenting everything. Conversations, photos, notes. It's clear this wasn't just jealousy. He wanted to control how this ended. Nora's hand gripped mine tightly. Is he still saying I asked him to come? Yes, the officer said, but the evidence says otherwise. Don't worry, you did the right thing. We gave our statements again, adding every detail. Hours passed before we left the station, exhausted but lighter, as though honesty itself had begun sweeping the ashes away. That evening, back home, I found Nora standing in the doorway of our living room, staring at the crooked Lisbon print. She straightened it with a soft, deliberate touch. "I don't know if you'll ever forgive me," she said, "but I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving I deserve it." I didn't answer. Some wounds need quiet before healing. But I did take her hand. And for the first time in days, the house didn't feel like a crime scene. It felt like a place that might one day be home again. Still, in the back of my mind, a question remained. What drives someone like Marco to turn love into obsession? That answer, I suspected, was still waiting to unfold. And I knew our story wasn't over yet. Because sometimes, even when the danger leaves your doorstep, its shadow stays behind. And I could already feel that shadow stretching toward us again. Weeks passed. The locks were changed, the walls repainted, and silence finally felt safe again. Nora started therapy. I joined her sometimes, learning to listen without accusation. Marco remained behind bars awaiting trial, but his shadow lingered like a stain we couldn't quite scrub away. One morning, I found an envelope on our porch. No return address, just my name in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a single photo, me and Nora laughing at the lake, and a short line written on the back. Truth always wins. My stomach clenched, but then I noticed the police evidence tag faintly stamped on the edge. It had been returned from the investigation, not a threat, but a reminder. That night, Nora and I sat together by the fire. She said softly, "I can't undo what I did, but I can choose differently every day after this." I believed her, not because the hurt was gone, but because she was facing it instead of hiding. As flames flickered across the walls, I realized revenge wasn't about making someone suffer. It was living well despite what they tried to destroy. Marco had wanted chaos. Instead, we'd built quiet strength from the wreckage. I took Nora's hand, warm and trembling. "We survived him," I said. "Now let's survive ourselves." Outside, rain began to fall, washing the street clean, and for the first time in months, I let myself breathe without fear, finally free.